Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. If you're new, subscribe, drop a like, and comment your thoughts below. Hannah is back. She's going to be singing a new rendition of her new Pau Torres song she's come up with because I know you all loved the one yesterday. I'm only joking, but yes, she's back. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's very good to be back on the screen after a little post end of the season hiatus, but really happy to be back online.
Yeah, you're all ready. You are match sharp now, ready to go into the new
Mm,
season. So, to be fair, we speak quite often anyway in our group chat anyway. So,
yeah.
we know you're alive, but everybody else out there might not know where you are. So yeah, we've had quite a lot happen. Monchi's come in, who's now the new sporting director who seems to be doing bits in this window. And I really want to just touch on how we seem a little bit more out in the open now with our transfer business. Would you agree that
Mm.
for the last couple of years it's been very much sort of sometimes a new player comes in and it's like we drop the mic and there we go, we've got a brand new player, and we've been very quiet, but now it feels like we're a little bit more bullish and open about what we're doing. Is that the vibe you kind of get?
I think a little bit, a little bit. There's been so many rumours, as everyone who follows this channel will know. Um,
I
so
don't
you
make them
know,
up, by the way.
so I think there's clear. With some of them, there's no smoke without a fire. So I have a feeling that with the new sporting director, he's perhaps a little bit more vocal, but he's also going to have lots of different connections across the industry. And those connections may be the ones that perhaps leak it to the press, or maybe he's the type that is quite open to having things out in the press because you know what it's like in the 21st century. So much of like the transfer dynamic is sort of tit for tat, like let's put in this bid or let's throw this into the press to make someone else bid a bit higher, or we'll get so and so to put a bid in to make the other party more interested, or it's all tactics, isn't it? So I like to think that whatever we do see in the press is kind of what Aston Villa wants there to be out there, because like you say, the last couple of seasons, I mean, the perfect case study that everyone always refers to is the Danny Ings transfer, but there's been quite a few like that, hasn't there, where it's not always come out of nowhere, but it's been very quick, like we've been linked and then the next day or a couple of days after there's there's a announcement. So slightly feels like a bit more of a slow burner so far. We've obviously made a few good additions, but we seem to be playing the game in terms of making sure we're getting the right players for the right price. I think Monchi clearly knows what he's doing. He's a season pro, and I think he'll have a list of top targets, and we'll be going after them, whatever it takes. So I think it's been interesting to kind of sit back and watch. I've said many times before that I don't, love the transfer windows. I find it just so stressful to keep up with. Like there's just every day there's something new. You guys absolutely love it, and I think most football fans do. But I find it really hard to keep up with, and a lot of the time they don't amount to much, or
Yeah.
and because I've got such small knowledge when it comes to a lot of these like up and coming like European youngsters, I'm like, who is this person now? Like, are they any good? Do I trust the like YouTube clips? Which we all end up watching anyway. So it's transfer season is always a funny time, but I feel like the last couple of years we've kind of done things the right way. So I fully trust that even with a new sporting director, everything's being done tactically and for a reason.
I think the interesting thing about this window, especially, is the fact that we had, say, around 8, 9 months of Unai Emery working with the players that he'd currently got, and I think the exciting part in this window is finding out really where Unai feels like we really need to strengthen. And if I have a look at the first three signings that we have made. One is pending, which we imagine is pretty much done and dusted. It's about just,
I hope so after I sang that song.
yeah, I know. It's going to be clipped up if not. So we've got Yuri Tielemans on a free. A central midfielder. He can play a little bit defensive, can play a little bit further forward, but he's sort of that well-rounded midfielder, can pop up with an absolute worldie out of nowhere, seasoned international, keeps hold of the ball really well. So read into that, quite telling where does he fit in. We've then gone into the market for a ball-playing centre-back. We've spent a lot of money on Pau Torres. It really felt like this was one that Unai really wanted to get in. It felt like one of our number one top targets. So that's telling in itself that for me, he walked straight into that defence. And then the new addition that's slightly pending is Diaby, a pacey, out-and-out winger, electric winger, can play further forward as a shadow striker /10/striker, but predominantly is a winger. So with those three signings, how are you feeling about those signings that we have made?
I think they've been really targeted. I feel like since probably during January transfer window, or maybe kind of at the period that followed after, we were talking about what would happen this summer. And I think we all kind of agreed that it would be 4 or 5 sort of big ticket players. So far our hypothesis was quite spot on, because we've been building like the core of this Aston Villa team for a few years now, and since Unai basically inherited a squad, he didn't really do much other than make what we had better. So we knew that after he really kind of solidified that core, he'd want like just a few really, really good players. And I feel like so far, obviously we don't know what they're going to end up being like, but so far it's really exciting, because it feels like we're going in really like targeting the players we want for very specific purposes in specific positions, and we're going in and we're splashing the cash. Obviously Tielemans was on a free, which was just brilliant business. I've liked Tielemans as a player the whole time I've watched him at Leicester, so I was really chuffed with that. The Pau Torres, again, someone who's got age on their side, has got great experience in Europe, and looks like they're going to really like improve the vision we have for our back four as like a playing out from the back and a ball playing defensive line. So again, another really exciting transfer. And then the Diaby one, which again isn't confirmed, but at the minute looks like it's going to happen, is everyone loves the attacking players, don't they? I mean, for me, those are the ones I really get excited about. But that he, again, seems like one of the top 10 like most wanted players in that position from what I'm hearing in world football, which is just like ridiculous that we've now got that pull. Feels bizarre to even get a player like that. Believe he had a little bit of a partnership with Leon Bailey, which could be interesting as well. And I think for the most part, sort of towards the end of last season, when we were obviously on great form, I think we had a few conversations again about, right, this team is doing great things, but who do we think we need to replace? And there were a couple of positions that I felt really needed to be improved. And it was always that winger spot that I felt we were really light in. And I don't think we've ever, since Jack Grealish, had someone on the wing that's really sort of hit the ground running and that's been consistent enough, because we saw flashes in the pan from all these players over the last few years. It was Trezeguet, it was Al Ghazi, it was Traore, Leon Bailey now. So we're kind of waiting on that star winger, someone wide, someone who is pacey but has that end product. So for me, that was the one I really was looking out for. So I'm really excited for if and when that announcement comes through. But I think what we're seeing is, like I say, really targeted approach from Villa. I expect maybe like one or two more real solid signings. I don't think we're going to be buying anyone for the sake of it. It's just not our style anymore. Hopefully offload a few more. Obviously, a couple have gone out, and we've got the exciting prospect of perhaps having a couple academy step ups. Mainly, everyone wants to see Cameron Archer, don't they? And with it looking like John Duran's going out on loan, hopefully we can see Cameron Archer have an excellent pre-season and maybe get some minutes in the Premier League, because I believe in him. I do. So that would, for me, be an excellent window.
Yeah, you make some really good points as usual. So that leads me on now to what sort of like this video is kind of all about, and it's catching your thoughts now on what next, where next, who next. We've spoke about looking at the squad, and we are imagining that Diaby is now in. We are still linked with Doku as well, who is a winger. So if there is something more in that one, then it looks like we're going to go out and out winger vibes this window. So I'm going to share the screen now, and I'm going to kind of just show you it. Bear with me when I'm trying to explain this graphic, by the way, because there's some players that I think are first teamers and others that aren't. And what I'm trying to show now is where I think we kind of still need to strengthen. So here I've got the defenders, but I just wanted to try and picture a lineup. So I think defense centre backs is like done now. It's so solid. There's Torres, Mings, Konsa, Carlos. That is just solid. I think left back is solid as well. I think Moreno and Luca Dean. There's rumours of Luca Dean to Forest or whatever. If Luca Dean went, then we would bring in another left back. So that area for me now is pretty shut down, pretty locked down. I think there's no room for any players coming in those areas. Now, in the middle, now I've took out Luiz and Kamara, and I've put the two players that would potentially go and fill in that double pivot. We know McGinn's played there, but I think that was more of there was nobody else, was there? So I think that's why we did that. So in that area, you've got Chambers and Dendoncker. Above that, you've kind of got a Coutinho in this vibe, a Tielemans in this vibe, Ramsey. Obviously, he's a first teamer, first name on the team sheet at this moment in time. When fit, he has been, the go-to player in that area. This side, we've kind of got McGinn, Buendia. Doesn't really alternate too much with that area. And then we've kind of got Bailey, Diaby, and up top, we've got Watkins and Cameron Archer. So I've left two positions out, Hannah. I've left keeper, because I do think we need a new keeper to work alongside Martinez, and this right back area. So I'm kind of looking at this area a little bit. Do you think that's okay, or do you think that needs strengthening?
Chambers has had, again, some flashes of brilliance, but he's just not, he's nowhere near sort of Louise level, and you just don't want, Louise, Kamara, you need a third person to come in for whatever reason to have a big gulf in the quality. And I know we're still not at the point where we're going to have, 22 Champions League level players, but I don't think Chambers is the answer, which is a shame, because he is a decent player, but just with the ball at his feet, it's not brilliant. And Donker, I think, is a decent backup. I think he's fine. We didn't see that much of him, did we, last season? Enough for me to doubt him. I think every time we did see him, he did a good job. I think he is a decent third choice. But
because there are rumours that we were potentially looking to offload Dendoncker. So this is why really I've highlighted this area a little bit, because you've got Louise and Kamara. Chambers, like you say, I agree. Dendoncker might be offloaded. There was the rumours of Tyler Adams coming in. So I still feel like this area potentially needs looking at.
Yeah. If we are going to get rid of Dendoncker, which I know there was a few mumblings, then we would, in my opinion, definitely need,
Yeah,
because you don't want to get back to the point where we're having to put John McGinn there, because
yeah,
as much as he, like you say, can play there, we don't want him to. And if we
no,
are having an extra game in the week, we are going to need that rotation, and you just don't want it to end up being that you're rotating John McGinn out, so he's playing 3 games a week. Sometimes he's playing in, that kind of six position, or it's just not. It's not like the longer term plan, is it? So you are right in terms of, I suppose it will be dependent on what we do with Dendoncker. Do with Dendoncker.
yeah.
That's a mouthful. But I think the Chambers one for me, I wouldn't be surprised if we move him on as well.
Yeah, I think so too. So moving on, I've said this numerous times now. I think we're still going to go quite big on this central attacking midfielder. I know a lot of Villa fans out there, me too, really want Goncalves from Lisbon. But I look at this area and I think you've got like I said earlier, you've got Ramsey when fit is one of our up and coming best players. We've got Coutinho who's back. We've got Tielemans who I think can play in this area. But I do think I look at the squad at the minute and I just think I want a bit more firepower in and around here. Do you think that's
Mm.
an area that you think we need to look at, or would you say we look pretty solid in that area?
I'd say it's probably like low priority. Not saying
Mm,
that we can't improve, but if we're talking about priority for this window, it wouldn't be somewhere I'm concerned about. But I do get what you mean. It's not like we don't have. I don't know if this is the right phrase, but we don't have like a superstar now. When
mm,
I'm at Villa Park, Jacob Ramsey to me is a superstar, and I love John McGinn, and I expect Tielemans to be brilliant, and Buendia is a great technical player. But you don't look at that area and think we've got someone who is like Champions League elite. Do you know what I mean? Like, not a superstar. Now that for me, it doesn't massively concern me, because what we do have there is really good quality, and perhaps the superstar in that position comes next season. It's, if we talk about a project, the whole idea of a football club being a project is the fact that you've got to build it over time. Like, I don't think anyone expects us to have a Champions League brilliant 22 players this window, because it just won't happen. That's not to say that we shouldn't have the ambition, but I think you just have to be a little bit realistic. For me, I wouldn't worry too much about that area. I think especially if we do have all of them fit. We know that Jacob Ramsey's injured, not 100% sure how long he'll miss. Could be the first month, could be less, could be more. So that's one player down. But other than that, if you have all of those players fit, I think that is a very healthy selection of good players, especially if they're playing how they did at the end of last season. So I definitely now feel like the priorities should be, and probably is, in other areas. But I wouldn't say no,
mhm.
of course, to if the right player came in for the right money.
Yeah, and this is this is one that I wouldn't say divides the fan base, but the up top area.
I knew you were
And
going to say that.
I'll tell you where I'm at with it, and this is where I am honestly at with it. I do honestly think we need something else up top. Like,
Mm,
it's the profile of a certain type of striker, which I think we need somebody that's a bit Benteke vibes, strong, powerful, offers something totally different. But part of me feels like we've spent 20 million on Duran. Looks like he's going out on loan. We've got Ollie Watkins, who for me is our first choice striker. And if fit, if firing, fully on form, literally plays every game, because you don't rest strikers that are in form. How many
mhm,
games does Harry Kane sit out? How many, they don't sit out strikers really.
yeah.
I can't see us spending big money on a striker. And I just don't know where we are with the striker situation. Like, do we get one on loan? Do we go for one of these where they're like virtually on a free and you pay like 5 million for a striker that's, a bit more seasoned? But where are you at? Because we all want Archer to come through. We all want Archer to stay. We want Archer to play. But then I think if Watkins gets injured this season, what have we got?
100%.
So I just don't know. I can't see us spending money on a strike. But then if he gets injured, we don't have one.
Exactly. And I had the slight concern when we got rid of Danny Ings in January, but I kept my cool and I thought we'll be fine, and we were. But you don't want to go into a full season relying on one striker. And I'm not saying that Cameron Archer isn't a viable option, because at the start of this episode I was singing his praises and I think he can step up. But again, you can't rely on a young player who's never really played in the Premier League to be your first choice striker if anything were to go wrong. So, but it's also a funny balance, because if you do bring in another striker, then it becomes an issue of, right, well, if you do, drop Watkins, or Watkins gets injured, you're always going to go to that second choice striker, and then Cameron Archer just falls out of the picture. So it's a bit like, a funny balancing act. And I think you are right in the sense that if we are to get another one, it would have to be someone who isn't at like the absolute top of their game, like scoring 30 goals a season or 20 goals a season even, because I think, one, you won't get them for cheap, and two, they'll expect to be the starter, or they'll expect that to be in a two with Watkins, or to be Watkins's backup. Like, you're never going to keep them happy. It would have to be sort of like a middle of the range striker, and at which point you kind of think, are we just getting them in for the sake of it, just to have a third striker?
And then they become like sort of surplus to requirements in the end, because if you get Champions League or whatever, we outgrow that player, and you kind of left with that. I don't know any disrespect to any player, but you're kind of left with a bit of a Traore that he's okay, but you don't want him.
And then we're at the point now where you're seeing it right now, that we're trying to offload all those players, so we don't want to keep going in that vicious circle.
What I would say about Watkins is, I'm a big Watkins fan, probably as a lot of you probably will know, because I sort of, I not stick up for him, but I kind of like, I have his corner all the time, because I look back at his time at Villa, and his first season, I think, was under that lockdown period where it was behind closed doors, and he had a good season, didn't he? He had a good season then. And then sort of the next season we had Dino, and it didn't work, and we had Gerrard, and it was a weird vibe. Yeah. To be fair, I'll be quite happy when we don't have to mention this Gerrardy vibe. I think once we get this season out the way, we don't have to refer to like we don't have to refer to like the last season, which was last season where we kind of had a bit of him. So we had that season with Dino and Gerrard where it was a bit okay, weren't the best, was it? And then we had last season where for 12 games we were completely useless. And then he started to pick up a bit of form, and he scored 15 goals, which is his most in the Premier League. So he's only ever had one sort of settled season at Villa. And I think going into this season, I think this is going to be the best version of Watkins we've seen, because he's coming off the back of a good season under Emery, going into this one where everything's a lot more settled, a lot more relaxed. They all know how they're meant to be playing. I think this is a big season for Watkins. Do you?
Definitely. I think so, because I think if he doesn't like really find form this season, I don't want to say this because it's going to sound really small time, but his like ideal situation of being sold for mega money wouldn't happen. and retaining him for a really good Villa side wouldn't happen, if you get what I mean. So he needs to do well either to stay at Villa or to get a big move, which ultimately are the two outcomes we want. We either want him to be really good for us or get us a massive profit. And if he's average or doesn't kind of improve on what he's already doing, that price tag and that value at Aston Villa just kind of either peters out or actually drops. So he's got it in him, hasn't he? And I think the reason that we stick up for him, I don't even think stick up for him's necessarily the right word, because I think
No,
for the
it's
most
not.
part people support him and he doesn't need us to back him up. But we do sing his praises because he is so different to what else you can get on the market. Like, we love him for so much more than the goals he scores. So I think it's so important for him to be in this Villa side. We just need that consistency that he had for 2-3 months at the sort of, I don't even know when it was, sort of springtime. So we know he's got it in him. I think he massively is a confidence player, isn't he? But who better to play under, and what better team to play in at the minute? He's got the best resources, the best opportunities, the best coach. He's got it all. So it is down to him ultimately. But we are sort of at a weird place where, do we go into a whole new season with just him and then just Cameron Archer? It feels like, as much as I think Cameron Archer can do it, and he is clearly talented, it is just slightly a bit like, do you want him to be your backup? Because Watkins could get a pretty bad injury. Like, he could be out for 6 months. Then what do? You've got to wait till January to kind of fix that. And then you've got, Bailey, who could maybe play up top, but it's just not ideal. Not when we're in Europe. Not when we want to build on last season. So I hope he does get better, and I think he can. But it is just slightly like in the back of my head as well that we probably do need something. I just don't know what the solution is.
I think in my head, we've had, and I hope we've finally had the last one, but we've seemed to be getting like injuries, and it's quite annoying. You look at last season. Okay, we go back even further. We had a Wesley ACL. We had a Carlos one. We've had McGinn out for large periods last season. We had Ramsey's now got a broken bone. We've got Moreno out.
Kamara missed loads of last
Kamara.
season.
So that's just in my mind at the minute, and I just want to get that out of my mind. But I think while we're still in this phase of sort of getting these injuries, and I know you can't base anything on just these injuries, but I just think the striker vibe, what we don't want to do is have to rely on Archer. I think we want Archer to be here, but sort of like no pressure Archer, whereas we're an injury away from Archer. You're the main guy firing us into Europe and etc. So I think that's where we are with the striker front. I'm glad I've got your thoughts on that as well. Keeper, I think we know how important it is playing out from the back. Olsen just can't do it. He can't do it. So the fact that he can't do it, it doesn't make any difference to me whether he's a good shot stopper, he's a good, reflex keeper that can make saves. He can't play with the ball at his feet, and that's how we play. So unfortunately, I think he's got to go. Right back, interesting to see what we do with that one as well. But I think we're sort of on the same page. It's been good to get your thoughts. While we have been on, there has been news from Fabrizio saying that it is a done deal, Diaby. So I know at the start we were sort of talking about it's virtually done, but maybe it's not. If this episode goes out Sunday morning, we recorded it on Saturday night, so it might have been done, it might not have been done, but Fabrizio is saying that it is now signed, sealed, delivered, 5-year deal. So we'll end the episode on that one. It's been great to have you back on, Hannah. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.